Welcome back to Speak English Corner, a calm, gentle space where you can breathe a little deeper, slow down a little more, and listen to the voice inside you that the world often drowns out. Today, we explore a beautiful truth, one that many people spend their whole lives searching for. The quiet power you only find in solitude, in a world that pushes us to stay connected, to stay busy, to stay visible. It can feel strange, even uncomfortable, to sit alone with ourselves. We are surrounded by noise, notifications, expectations, opinions, comparisons. Silence has become a rare experience. And solitude? Sometimes it feels like a luxury. Sometimes it feels like a threat. But solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the absence of others. Solitude is the presence of yourself. Loneliness feels cold, heavy, empty. Solitude feels warm, spacious, quietly alive. Loneliness says, "No one is here for me." Solitude says, "I am here for myself." And when you learn to make that shift from fearing your own company to appreciating it, you unlock a kind of strength that no one else can give you, because the truth is this: your deepest clarity, your inner wisdom, your emotional resilience, your intuition, your creativity, your healing, they all come alive in moments of genuine solitude, not in noise, not in crowds, not in chaos, but in quiet. If you listen closely, you'll notice that some of the most important decisions in your life weren't made when the world was loud. They were made in those small pauses when you were simply with yourself. Maybe on a quiet walk, maybe late at night when everything was still, maybe during a moment of unexpected silence, when your heart suddenly whispered something you didn't know you needed to hear. Solitude isn't empty. It's full of guidance, full of answers, full of parts of you that finally feel safe to speak when the world stops demanding your attention. But many people fear being alone because solitude asks you to face yourself, your true desires, your hidden fears, your unprocessed emotions, your unmet needs. It reveals the things your busyness tries to hide. And yet, when you have the courage to sit with yourself, to listen without running away, something shifts. You start to feel rooted. You start to feel grounded. You start to feel whole. Solitude becomes a mirror showing you not just who you are, but who you're meant to become. And that is where your quiet power begins. Not from proving yourself, not from being seen, not from performing for the world, but from simply being with yourself and allowing that to be enough. In today's episode, we will walk through this journey gently. Why people fear solitude, how solitude reveals your truest self, the inner strength that only grows in quiet, and how to practice solitude without feeling lonely or disconnected. This is not about isolating yourself from the world. It's about reconnecting with the world from a deeper place within you. It's about remembering that you don't need noise to feel alive. You don't need approval to feel worthy. And you don't need company to feel whole. Inside you, there is a quiet space full of wisdom, full of strength, full of power, waiting for you to return to it today. We begin that return together. Asterisk for many people. Being alone feels uncomfortable, sometimes even frightening. Not because solitude is inherently scary, but because silence has a way of bringing us face to face with parts of ourselves. We've learned to avoid it. We often think we fear emptiness, but the truth is, we fear what the emptiness reflects. When the world is loud, distraction becomes easy. You can scroll, work, talk, run, escape. You can fill every minute, so you never have to sit with the thoughts. waiting quietly beneath the surface. But when you're alone, there's nowhere to run, no noise to drown out your emotions, no notifications to break the stillness, no external voices to override your inner one. And that's when the truth rises. The truth you've pushed away for months, maybe years. This is why people fear solitude. Not because it hurts, but because it reveals what needs healing. First, we fear facing the feelings we've buried. There are emotions we've learned to silence because they feel too heavy. Disappointment, regret, confusion, loneliness, the fear of not being enough. As long as we stay busy, those feelings stay quiet. But solitude turns down the world's volume and turns up our own. In the silence, you can suddenly hear the ache you didn't want to admit. You can feel the tension you've been carrying in your chest. You can sense the sadness you've been pretending not to feel. It's not that solitude creates pain. It simply reveals it. And that revelation can feel overwhelming when you're not used to listening. Second, we fear losing the identity. Built on people's approval, so much of modern life is built around being seen. What people think of us, what they expect from us, how they respond, how they approve. Even our sense of worth sometimes grows around how others perceive us. But in solitude, no one sees you. No one evaluates you. No one praises or criticizes. And without those mirrors, you might feel lost. Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when I'm not performing? Who am I when I'm not meeting expectations? These questions can feel unnerving, because the world rarely teaches us how to define ourselves from the inside out. We fear being alone because it forces us to face the truth that identity isn't something given. It's something discovered. Third, we fear silence because silence exposes our inner dialogue. The external world is noisy, but the internal world can be even louder. For many people, being alone means hearing their own thoughts without interruption. And if your inner voice is harsh, critical, doubtful, unforgiving, silence feels like a confrontation. You might fear being alone, not because solitude is painful, but because your inner voice has not yet learned how to be gentle. But solitude isn't the enemy here. Self-judgment is, and solitude becomes beautiful when your inner voice softens. Fourth, we fear solitude because we equate it with abandonment. Somewhere deep in childhood, many of us learned that being alone meant being forgotten, left behind, or unloved. And even as adults, that old imprint lingers. Solitude can trigger a quiet echo inside. What if I don't matter? What if no one comes back? What if I don't belong anywhere? But solitude is not abandonment. It is a return to the self, to the heart, to your own presence. Being alone doesn't mean no one cares. It means you're learning to care for yourself without needing constant reassurance. The difference is profound. Fifth, we fear solitude because we've grown addicted to stimulation. Constant noise makes silence feel unnatural. Constant connection makes being alone feel wrong. Constant comparison makes self-reflection feel dangerous. The modern world trains us to fear stillness. Not because stillness is bad, but because we've forgotten how to rest inside it. We fear the quiet because we've forgotten that quiet is where we grow. But here is the gentle truth. The fear of being alone does not mean you're weak. It means you're human, and like any human, you can learn, just as a dark room becomes less frightening once your eyes adjust. Solitude becomes less intimidating once your heart adjusts. At first, silence feels like emptiness. But over time, you begin to notice something else inside it. Clarity, comfort, presence, honesty, peace, strength. You begin to hear your real voice, the one that's been overshadowed by the world's noise for too long, and slowly, the fear fades. You stop running from yourself. You start returning to yourself. You realize that the quiet is not an absence. It is an opening to hear, to feel, to understand, to reconnect, an opening to meet the deepest, truest version of you. In the next part, we will explore what happens after the fear softens, the moment when solitude becomes a mirror, allowing you to meet yourself again with clarity and compassion. There is something remarkable that happens when the noise fades and the world finally becomes quiet. In the beginning, solitude feels like a pause, a break from stimulation, a space to breathe, a moment where everything slows down. But if you stay in that space just a little longer, you'll notice something deeper beginning to happen. Solitude becomes a mirror, not a harsh mirror that criticizes every flaw, not the distorted mirror of comparison, not the fragile mirror of other people's opinions, but a soft, honest, undistorted reflection of who you truly are. A reflection you may not have seen in a long time. First, solitude reveals the emotions you've been carrying. When life is loud, it's easy to lose track of what you really feel. You move from task to task, role to role, day to day, without ever pausing long enough to hear your own heart. But in solitude, your emotions rise gently to the surface, not to overwhelm you, but to be acknowledged. You begin to see the sadness you brushed aside, the exhaustion you ignored, the longing you didn't dare name, the joy you forgot to feel, the dreams you've kept hidden. Solitude gives these emotions space to breathe, to stretch, to reveal themselves, and once they are seen, you can finally tend to them instead of suppressing them. Solitude offers clarity not by adding more, but by stripping away the noise that kept you disconnected from yourself. Second, solitude reconnects you with your true desires. So much of what we chase in life is inherited: expectations from family, pressure from society, visions of success that were never ours to begin with. But when you sit with yourself long enough, away from the eyes and voices of others, you start to feel something shift inside. What do I actually want? What matters to me? What makes my heart feel alive? In solitude, desires that once felt distant or impossible suddenly become clearer, not louder, but more present. You begin to realize that some dreams were never truly yours, that some paths you followed were chosen out of fear, not out of truth. And at the same time, you rediscover the dreams you quietly buried, the ones that still glow under the dust of doubt. Solitude helps you see which parts of your life are authentic and which parts you've simply learned to tolerate. It reconnects you with your compass. Third, solitude allows you to hear your intuition. Again, intuition is subtle. It doesn't shout. It whispers. It nudges. It speaks in gentle knowing, in quiet certainty, in a feeling that doesn't use words. But intuition can't be heard in a crowded mind. It needs space. It needs silence. It needs solitude. When you spend time alone, that inner wisdom you've neglected comes back like an old friend. Soft, warm, reassuring. Suddenly, decisions feel clearer. You can sense what is right for you without needing endless advice from the outside world. You know who lifts your energy and who drains it. You know which opportunities feel aligned and which ones feel heavy. You know when to stay, when to walk away, when to begin and when to let go. Solitude sharpens your intuition because it removes the distractions that drown it out. Fourth, solitude shows you who you are without the world. Most people only know themselves through interaction, through roles, through responsibilities, through identity shaped by other people's expectations. But who are you when no one is asking anything of you? When you're not performing a role, when you're not trying to impress, prove, or explain? Who are you when you are simply yourself? These are the questions solitude answers, because in solitude, you meet yourself again, not the version shaped by society, but the version shaped by your heart. You realize your worth is not dependent on being needed. Your identity is not tied to productivity. Your value is not defined by validation. You discover that even without the world watching, you still exist in full color. You are complete even when no one is around. Fifth, solitude becomes a space for inner alignment. When you are alone long enough, you start to notice misalignments. What drains you? What energizes you? What feels wrong? What feels right? You see the habits that hurt you. You see the relationships that no longer fit. You see the choices you've been making out of fear, and the life your soul quietly longs for. Solitude doesn't just show you who you are. It shows you who you could become if you chose yourself more often. It becomes a place of inner alignment, where your thoughts, feelings, values, and desires begin to connect into something solid. And true. Sixth, solitude teaches you how to be with yourself. This may be the most powerful gift of all. When you learn how to be with yourself without fear, without judgment, without distraction, you become unshakable, because you're not running anymore. You're not hiding. You're not searching for yourself in other people's approval. You've learned to sit with yourself as a friend, as a companion, as a safe place to return to. And from that place, everything in life becomes clearer, softer, and more intentional. This is why solitude is not isolation, it is intimacy. Intimacy with the deepest parts of you, the parts that only appear when you finally slow down long enough to notice them in the next part. We'll explore the quiet strength that solitude unlocks, the resilience, creativity, clarity, and inner power that can only emerge when you learn to stand strong in your own quiet. There is a kind of strength that doesn't reveal itself in crowds. It doesn't appear when life is loud, when people are watching, or when you are constantly surrounded by expectations and noise. This strength awakens in the quiet moments, the ones where it's just you, your breath, your thoughts, your heart. Solitude is not an escape from the world. It is a return to yourself. And in that return, you uncover a power you may have forgotten you had. First, solitude strengthens your emotional resilience. When you're always surrounded by people, it's easy to lean on their presence more than your own strength. But when you sit in solitude, you learn how to hold your emotions without needing someone else to balance them for you. You learn how to comfort yourself when something hurts. You learn how to breathe through discomfort instead of running from it. You learn how to process feelings instead of avoiding them. This doesn't make you cold. It makes you steady. It makes you calm in storms where others panic. It makes you capable of handling life with a grounded heart and a clear mind. People often mistake solitude for fragility, but those who have faced themselves in silence are rarely fragile. They are unshakable. Second, solitude enhances your clarity. There are decisions you simply cannot make when the world is loud. There are truths you cannot see when you are overwhelmed by others. Opinions, there are paths you cannot recognize when your attention is scattered in every direction. But in solitude, the fog lifts, slowly, gently, but undeniably. You begin to notice what truly matters. You begin to sense what feels right. You begin to hear the small voice inside you, the one that always knew the way, but was constantly drowned by the outer world. Clarity isn't something you find. It's something that emerges when everything unnecessary falls away, and solitude is the space where that emergence happens. Third, solitude deepens your creativity. Some of the greatest ideas in history were born in silence. In a quiet room, a long walk alone, a moment of reflection away from the noise. Creativity needs space, mental space, emotional space, spiritual space. When you are alone, you hear thoughts you didn't know you had. You make connections that never happen in rush. You feel inspired by things you would normally ignore. A shape, a memory, a phrase, a breath. The best ideas often come not when you're trying to be creative, but when you give your mind permission to wander freely. Solitude gives your inner world room to expand, and in that expansion, your creativity becomes limitless. Fourth, solitude strengthens your self-trust. One of the greatest gifts solitude offers is the ability to trust yourself again. When you're constantly seeking advice, validation, or approval, you begin to doubt your own voice. But when you spend time alone, you learn something profound. Your intuition is wiser than you think. Your heart knows truths your mind has forgotten. Your inner compass never really stopped working. You just couldn't hear it. In solitude, you make decisions based not on fear, but on inner alignment. You realize you don't need to ask 10 people before you choose something for yourself. You realize you don't need the world to agree before you take a step. You realize that you can rely on yourself, and that self-reliance feels like strength. The person who trusts themselves cannot be easily broken. Fifth, solitude connects you to a deeper source of peace. True peace doesn't come from avoiding problems or arranging life so nothing ever goes wrong. True peace comes from knowing you can return to a calm inner space no matter what happens. Solitude teaches you how to find that place, the quiet within the chaos, the stillness beneath the storm. When you've practiced being with yourself, you carry a piece of that quiet everywhere you go. In difficult conversations, you stay centered. In stressful situations, you breathe slower. In uncertainty, you remain grounded. The world might shake, but your core does not. That is the power awakening through solitude. Sixth, solitude reveals your authenticity. When you are alone, you have no one to impress, no expectations to meet, no image to protect. You are simply you, raw, unfiltered, honest, real, and in that state, you begin to see what kind of life actually fits you. You notice which dreams feel true, and which ones you carried only to please others. You notice which values belong to you and which were taught to you before you even had a chance to choose. You notice what you miss when everything becomes quiet, and that is often the biggest clue to what your soul really wants. Solitude reveals your most authentic self because there's no one else left to perform for. And when you know who you are when no one is watching, You become powerful when everyone is seventh. Solitude transforms you from the inside out. You may not notice the change right away. It's slow, subtle, like the way dawn shifts from darkness to light without making a sound. But one day, you'll look back and realize, I'm calmer, I'm clearer, I'm stronger. I know myself more deeply. I'm not afraid of being alone anymore. This transformation doesn't come from books, advice, or even external success. It comes from you, from the moments you sat alone and listened to the truth inside. Solitude didn't make you smaller, it made you whole. In the next part, we'll explore how to practice solitude in a healthy, healing way, so that being alone becomes nourishing, not lonely, empowering, not isolating. Solitude is not something you master in a day. It's something you grow into, slowly, gently, patiently, and like any meaningful relationship, the relationship you build with yourself requires presence, tenderness, and time. You don't need to retreat to a mountain, cut ties with everyone, or shut the world out entirely. You only need small moments, moments where you return to yourself without distractions, without expectations, without noise. Solitude becomes healing when you practice it with intention. Here are gentle ways to begin. First, start with micro-solitude. Solitude doesn't need to be long to be powerful. Sometimes a minute of quiet can shift your entire mindset. Try giving yourself little pockets of silence throughout the day. 1 minute before you check your phone in the morning, 30 seconds of slow breathing before you respond to a message, a quiet moment while drinking water, sitting still for 2 minutes before bed. These tiny pauses help you reconnect with your inner space without overwhelming you. Over time, micro-solitude builds emotional stamina, just enough to remind your brain that silence is safe. Second, create digital solitude. One of the biggest barriers to solitude is constant stimulation. Every notification pulls you away from yourself. Every scroll distracts you from your own thoughts. Every comparison disconnects you from your own truth. Try giving yourself simple boundaries. Put your phone in another room for 10 minutes. Turn off non-essential notifications. Have one no scrolling hour per day. End your day with silence instead of a screen. You'll be surprised by how much clarity returns when your mind isn't constantly flooded. Digital solitude is not about rejecting technology, it's about reclaiming your mental space. Third, practice emotional solitude. This means not rushing to others every time you feel something difficult. It doesn't mean isolating yourself. It doesn't mean holding everything inside. It simply means giving yourself a moment to feel before reaching out. When something hurts, try sitting with the emotion for a moment. What am I truly feeling right now? Where is this emotion coming from? What does my heart need at this moment? The goal is not to push people away, but to learn that you can hold space for your own emotions too. Emotional solitude builds emotional maturity. It teaches you that you are capable of comforting yourself. Fourth, spend time with yourself intentionally, not accidentally. There's a difference between being alone because life forced it and choosing alone time because your soul needs it. Try setting aside intentional solitude moments. A quiet walk without music, journaling in the morning, drinking tea without distractions, watching the sunset, sitting by a window, listening to your breath when time alone is chosen. It feels nurturing, not empty. Fifth, use Solitude to reconnect with creativity. Solitude awakens the parts of you that get lost in the noise. Try using your alone time to engage in something creative, not to achieve perfection, but to free your mind. Writing, drawing, painting, playing an instrument, taking photos, dancing alone, thinking, imagining, dreaming. Creativity in solitude is not about producing something. It's about expressing something. Your inner world grows richer when you give it space to breathe. Sixth, practice being your own companion. One of the biggest shifts is learning to enjoy your own company when you're alone. Talk to yourself internally with warmth and patience. How are you feeling? What do you need right now? I'm here with you. It may feel strange at first, but slowly, your inner world becomes friendlier. You stop seeing solitude as an empty room and start seeing it as a sacred space. You get to share with yourself. Seventh, turn solitude into nourishment, not avoidance. Healthy solitude doesn't mean hiding from problems, cutting off relationships, escaping responsibilities, avoiding uncomfortable conversations. Healthy solitude means returning to your center, reconnecting with your breath, listening to your intuition, grounding your emotions, aligning your decisions with your truth. Ask yourself gently, am I using solitude to strengthen myself, or am I using it to escape? Intention makes all the difference. Eighth, let solitude be a practice, not a punishment. Many people fear solitude because they associate it with being ignored, rejected, or forgotten. But solitude isn't something that happens to you. It's something you choose for your own well-being. Don't treat alone time as a sign of lack. Treat it as an offering, a moment you give yourself to rest, to reset, to reconnect. The gentler you are with the idea of being alone, the more natural and comforting it becomes. Ninth, remember that solitude becomes healing slowly. You don't have to love solitude right away. Healing doesn't rush you. Quiet doesn't pressure you. Let solitude unfold at its own pace. Some days it will feel peaceful. Some days it will feel uncomfortable. Some days it will feel like home. Some days it will feel like unfamiliar territory. All of it is part of the practice. The goal is not perfection. The goal is presence. Just show up with yourself. For yourself, even a few minutes of true solitude can transform the way you think, feel, and live. In the final part of this episode, we will explore the beautiful truth that emerges when you embrace solitude fully, the quiet strength, the deep peace, and the unshakable core that solitude builds within you. Asterisk, there is a moment, after you have spent enough time in solitude, where something inside you begins to shift. Not dramatically, not loudly, but quietly, the way dawn slowly replaces the night. Without asking for attention, you begin to feel a kind of strength that doesn't come from effort, or discipline, or trying to prove anything. It comes from stillness, a calmness rooted so deeply inside you that the world can no longer shake it loose. This is the strength of a quiet heart. A quiet heart is not empty. It is full of awareness, full of presence, full of understanding. It knows how to listen before reacting. It knows how to breathe before panicking. It knows how to pause before making meaning. And most beautifully, a quiet heart knows that it does not need constant noise, validation, or attention to feel alive. A quiet heart sees the world differently. When your heart is quiet, nothing needs to be perfect for things to feel alright. You're not disturbed by small inconveniences. You don't take things as personally as you used to. You don't rush into fear at the first sign of discomfort. Instead, you observe. You understand. You soften. You respond. Life itself doesn't get easier, but you become more capable, more grounded, more centered. Where others feel chaos, you feel clarity. Where others react impulsively, you respond consciously. Where others seek escape, you find presence. A quiet heart transforms your entire experience of living. A quiet heart is unshakable, not because nothing affects you, but because you no longer crumble when something does. You've learned how to sit with discomfort instead of fearing it. You've learned how to listen to your emotions instead of running from them. You've learned how to return to your center no matter what happens around you. This doesn't just give you strength. It gives you freedom, the freedom to walk through life without losing yourself. The freedom to connect with others without depending on them for identity. The freedom to face uncertainty without collapsing into fear. A quiet heart isn't a heart without pain. It's a heart that has learned how to stay open even when things hurt. A quiet heart makes solitude feel like home. Instead of feeling lonely, you feel connected to yourself, to your breath, to your truth, to the life you are building. You find joy in simple moments. A warm morning light, the sound of your breath, the clarity of your thoughts, the quiet comfort of being enough, without needing to be seen. You realize that solitude is no longer a place you run from, it's a place you return to when you want to remember who you are, and the world feels less frightening when you know that home is already inside you. This is the strength solitude gives. You not loud strength, not forceful strength, but deep, steady, unshakable strength. The strength to choose peace over reaction. The strength to listen instead of defense. The strength to walk away when something doesn't honor your soul. The strength to stay soft in a world that often rewards hardness. And most importantly, the strength to trust yourself more than you fear the unknown. Let this be your gentle reminder. You are never truly alone when you know how to be with yourself. Solitude is not the absence of connection. It is the foundation of it. Because when you can stand strong in your own quiet, you can enter the world from a place of wholeness, not emptiness. You stop searching for yourself in other people. You stop losing yourself in chaos. You stop abandoning yourself to feel accepted. You become someone who walks gently but carries depth, who speaks softly but with clarity, who loves quietly but fully, who stands alone but never feels lonely. This is the quiet power. You only find solitude, and it has been inside you all along, waiting for you to slow down, to listen, to return.